Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues now. And make sure to stay tuned to catch me, Mike Gallagher, coming up at 9, only on AM 560, The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. Some reaction and a lot of overreaction to President Trump's choice of words and responding to Kim Jong-un and the other, the sycophants over there in North Korea as to their threats of a nuclear attack directed against U.S. territory, most specifically Guam, which, of course, is a big concern to Hank Johnson.
Yeah.
Secretary of State Rex Tillerson responded yesterday to kind of clarify the president's posture.
And he said that, President Trump is getting support from the State Department. We can all sleep easier.
So the American people should sleep well at night. What the president was doing is sending a strong message to North Korea in language that Kim Jong-un would understand, because he doesn't seem to understand diplomatic language.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. And, oh, by the way, for those that are hyperventilating about Trump's choice of words, and it wouldn't have been mine, but I mean to suggest that his response will precipitate nuclear winter, as some are actually suggesting in political cartoons and op-eds, which are kind of word salads that are political cartoons. General James Mattis, is he a serious guy? Yeah. SecDef Mattis said the DPRK must choose to stop isolating itself and stand down in pursuit of nuclear weapons. The DPRK should cease any consideration of actions that would lead to an end of its regime and the destruction of its people. Would you say that's on the tone and tenor of what President Trump said yesterday with his fire and fury comment? I'd say so. So do you want to, you want to accuse you want to accuse SecDef Mattis of being Dr. Strangelove too, like many on the left are doing, and some, erstwhile members of the center right as well. For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by Deputy Assistant to the President. He is Sebastian Gorka. Dr. Gorka, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Good morning.
So, your reaction to the reaction to President Trump's comments, and particularly in light of what Tillerson and Mattis had to say in follow-up.
I find it really quite incredible that so many journalists and commentators don't know how a government works. Rex Tillerson is not the Secretary of Defense. He's our most senior diplomat. General Mattis, Secretary Mattis, runs our military enterprise, the Department of Defense. And above both of them is the only individual in America who bears the rank of Commander-in-Chief, and that is President Donald J. Trump. So the idea that there's any kind of dissonance between language completely ignores the fact that each man has his own portfolio, and Rex Tillerson is not responsible for the military, and Secretary Mattis is not responsible for diplomacy. And Secretary Tillerson was absolutely right. When you're dealing with literally a Stalinistic dictatorship like North Korea, there comes a point when they threaten us with the use of force and illegal ballistic missiles, threaten the island of Guam, where diplomatic language has no utility anymore, and you use stronger language. If you do anything else, you continue to appease a dictatorship, which is what we have been doing since the Clinton administration. And appeasement didn't work in Munich in 1938 with Hitler, and it's not going to work today with the regime in Pyongyang.
Well, and here's the other thing. I mean, here's what the D.C. press corps has done from time immemorial, so a little historical context is always warranted. Not that this is of the same quality what Trump had to say, in my opinion, but, I mean, remember how the press decried Ronald Reagan for calling the Soviet Union the evil empire, and that was going to precipitate nuclear winter.
Right. So it's like, do you remember, that's just even recent history. We had the last administration, which really was a product of the establishment left-wing appeasement philosophy. What did they say about Iran? Why did we have to? Why was it essential to sign the JCPOA Iran deal? Because they said, if you don't sign the deal, there will be war. I mean, that level of unsophisticated thinking is what we're seeing reflected by those journalists and commentators who can't deal with the fact that November the 8th happened and Hillary Clinton is not the president of the United States. We have a grave threat. Think about this. We have a historic vote last weekend, 15-0 in the UN Security Council, which means what? Russia and China agreed with us to create the most stringent sanctions package on North Korea in history. Why? Because this is a global threat, and the time for diplomacy is coming to an end.
But shouldn't we try? I mean, what should China's role be in all of this?
Well, China has the most leverage regionally. If you look at its role, if you look at the fact that it has kept North Korea alive, basically, after the failure of its economy. Think about this. The populace of North Korea is 2 to 3 inches shorter than the average member of the South Korean population. That's a nation that literally cannot feed its own people. It lives or dies based upon the imports from China. Therefore, there is massive diplomatic, political, and economic leverage that China has. Hopefully, China voting with us last weekend has sent the requisite message to the dictatorship that they have no friends left, and it is now up to them to de-escalate.
Well, Dr. Gorka, you're making it sound as if we're going to go to war.
Not at all. Not at all. That's the opposite of what I said. I said it is up to Pyongyang to de-escalate.
And the impact of the economic sanctions that were imposed, you mentioned that accomplishment and the Security Council unanimity on the topic. What is the hope that those economic sanctions will induce the North Koreans to do other than stand down, and on what timeline?
Well, look, the Rex Tillerson at the ASEAN 3 days ago made it very, very clear. He said it's very easy. North Korea can send an unequivocal message to us and to the rest of the world that they understand that they cannot continue to threaten and to use nuclear blackmail against our nations. And the way they do that is to say we will no longer have these illegal ballistic missile tests. If they said that, and if they followed through, we would see that as a sign of good faith, that there is no need for this situation to get worse. And that is a very, very simple measure. It costs them nothing, and we will wait and see whether they provide that signal to the world.
I want to skip back to the Western Hemisphere, the disintegration of Venezuela, the backing of Venezuela by our new partners in peace, the Cubans, who apparently are trying to poison or otherwise negatively impact the health of U.S. diplomats in Havana. What's the president's posture towards American policy in Venezuela in particular?
Well, I think we have shown the complete change in our attitude to these kinds of regimes as of January the 20th. So we call these regimes what they are. Maduro is a dictator. North Korea is a dictatorship as well. We're not going to believe in the last 8 years of all nations fundamentally want to get along, and we can have fancy conferences in Vienna or Geneva and come to some agreement. Wrong. When a nation denies its people their liberty, their individual dignity, because we have no problem. We are not against the people of Venezuela. They are suffering. They are captive people. We have no problem with the people of North Korea. It is the regimes, and these are evil regimes. We're not going to sweep things under the rug. We are going to call out evil when we see it, and we understand that when good men do nothing, evil wins.
All right. He is Dr. Sebastian Gorka, Deputy Assistant to President Donald Trump, also the author of the book Defeating Jihad, by the way. Dr. Gorka, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day. God bless.
And let's quickly go to Al in Naperville. You're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Hi, I just wanted to remind all the people that are really worried about that strong rhetoric leading to nuclear winter that they could look on the bright side. Nuclear winter might solve global warming.
Yeah, thanks for the silver lining, Al. Appreciate that.
Well, and then North Korea, I mean, yesterday they came out saying we're going to strike, by the end of the month. So, it's imminent that it's going to happen. And then this morning they're saying that they might be able to hit Guam. They're not sure. They just want to get somewhere around Guam because we have 2 military bases on Guam. It's about the size of Chicago, 170,000 people live there. So now they're kind of, we're going to try to reach it.
Well, they're not sure if Hank Johnson's going to be able to tow it out of the target zone in time. Hank Johnson, of course, famously worried about deploying more Marines on Guam, causing the island to capsize. He is trying to move Guam. He's got some tugboats out there that's going to pull Guam closer to the mainland.
Where is he? Don't tell me he died. Is he dead? Oh.
He's a member of Congress. He's a Democrat from Georgia. He's still in Congress. That's where he is.
He still has his position, even after saying that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
my God.
Do you think there are intellectual standards to be a member of Congress?